You've come to the right place. It's the Smart Driving Cars podcast. Thanks for giving us your time, and we aim to make it worthwhile. We have another terrific guest joining us. This edition is sponsored by the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF, symbol MOTO. For more information, head to motoetf.com. I'm Fred Fishkin, along with the Faculty Chair of Autonomous Vehicle Engineering at Princeton University, Alain Kornhauser. Hi again, Alan.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be with you again.
And with us this week, the founder, president, and CEO of SAFE, Securing America's Future Energy, Robbie Diamond. Thanks for being here, Robbie.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So nice to have you, Robbie.
And we have to say we love the aquarium behind you. It's
oh,
weird.
man.
Robbie, you've got a new report coming out that we're going to focus on. But first, let's give the audience a bit of background about SAFE. You're celebrating 15 years this year?
Give or take, it's like birthdays. You don't like to talk about how many years it's been.
Yeah, I've had 38. Going down.
Tell us a bit of background about the organization.
Absolutely. I mean, SAFE started in 2004, 2005, and really our core mission was to end oil dependence for economic and national security. That was the original mission statement. In 2004, we're fighting two wars in the Middle East, so the proximate cause of oil, really the fuel that makes the world go round. We've got a global war on terror, and I just couldn't believe that we would have our foreign policy and spending such lives, blood, and treasure of the United States, really in many cases having to compromise our own values on a commodity that we need to, run the modern economy, the lifeblood of this modern economy. And so I wanted to do something about it. So I was able, luckily to recruit former admirals and generals. I mean, clearly at the time, and still today, we're really the last respected institution, and CEOs of major companies. And our chairman being Fred Smith, the founder of FedEx, clearly understands the value of oil and in a global mobile economy, and General P.X. Kelly, the 20th Commandant of the Marine Corps. And that was our mission. Now, over the years, and we've been involved in both the intellectual side of ending oil dependence, but also on the solution side, legislative, regulatory. And oil is really a problem in transportation, where we have one fuel source in all transportation. It's we're a hostage to it, and it's a global market that is incredibly volatile, as we constantly see. And we just wanted to solve this problem, and we're not technology dependent. We're not, we don't exist to promote one thing. And over the years, have really not only looked at fuel economy and efficiency and been for that, but really looking at electric vehicles, whether they be battery or hydrogen, so we can diversify fuel sources. But then now, as we'll talk about today, looking at how connectivity, autonomy, shared and electric all fit together. And to use a military term, because we have a lot of military people around, are a force multiplier, and that each one can work together to have broad social benefits. And so it's not just about oil dependence. Yes, that is our core mission, but we believe that bringing these technologies together can have so much more, as we'll talk about today, societal benefits, and that is what we stand for, making this happen as quickly as possible.
You're formally releasing a report in the coming week titled Fostering Economic Opportunity Through Autonomous Vehicle Technology, and you'll be holding a virtual event surrounding that. Tell us a bit about it.
Yeah, so, we're very excited about this, and I have to thank Alain for the great professor for really being at the forefront of showing how autonomous, connected, shared vehicles can help people, the disadvantaged, economically disadvantaged, the low-income people get to a job. The one most determinant of economic upward mobility is actual mobility. So both for a job, but also, just think about life, getting to doctors, getting to grocery stores. Like, if you can't, in our car culture, don't have a car, you either have to spend money that you don't have, making it unaffordable. We'll talk about that. Or you are, relegated to, not being able to, see your potential, find a job, have upward mobility. And so we were looking at this and wrote this paper. And on July 16th, I probably should have started with that. At 2 p.m., we're releasing the paper. We're having an online forum with a few people. Courtney Ehrlichman of the Ehrlichman Group. She was at Carnegie Mellon University. Dr. Richard Ezeki at the Urban Institute, and Dr. Kornhauser himself. And so go to our website, secureenergy.org. I think you guys are going to publicize it, and we'd love to have people tune in and listen to this really, really important topic, and actually incredibly timely in a post-COVID world, because we see who the frontline workers are. We appreciate how getting somewhere has to be safe and affordable and convenient, and maybe this is a part of that solution going forward.
Well, let's get into the paper that you're coming out with a bit here. It analyzes how autonomous point-to-point transportation holds the potential to reduce inequities for low-income communities, as you've been pointing out. And you're saying that current transportation options really aren't anywhere near good enough?
Yeah, so look, first of all, let's just say this about the automobile. It's an incredible invention. It's created the modern world as we know it, incredible wealth. Like, this is not an attack on the automobile. I mean, but at the same time, especially in America, we've created a culture that's very dependent, and where you live helps determine, as I said before, this sort of social upward mobility. And so not only in urban areas, but increasingly in suburban areas, we see suburban poor, we see urban poor. And the truth is that without a car, it is very hard to find jobs. So, over 70% of jobs are not within 90 minutes of like a bus, and within 45 minutes, also incredibly low. And as I said before, medical appointments, childcare, everything else. So not only do you not have the right routes in many cases, you also, in many cases, it doesn't run at the hours that people, especially in low-income areas or low-income people, need, right? If they have 2 jobs and they're working off hours, it's very, very difficult for them. Another thing is it's actually quite costly for society itself. We subsidize most rides. Our bus system, only about 40% or less actually of the ticket price pays for the actual transportation of the operating costs. So everything else is being picked up by government. So the question is, yes, we need public transit, but what does public transit look like? And how does public transit best serve the community that most needs it? And that's one thing I'd say. And one specific fact I'll bring up, and we can talk about different facts, is that most Americans actually live in homes that would be considered unaffordable when looking at not only the cost of a home to income, but then putting in transportation costs. So many people move further and further away from cities in order to be able to afford a house, but then their cost of transportation, if there is transportation, goes up dramatically, could be a 5-fold. And so we saw that about 75 million homes in the United States are homes that would not be considered affordable, sustainably affordable, if you put together both their mortgage, rent, and with their transportation costs. So transportation really does define these things, and we need to find better solutions for society.
Well, you make a very good point there, because here in New Jersey, affordable housing is a really important thing. Okay, so we create affordable housing. Where do we create affordable housing? On cheap land. Where's cheap land? Nowhere near anything. So all of a sudden you've created affordable housing, but you haven't created affordable living because of the transportation costs that you put on top of it. And then you say, well, we'll have a bus, let them, go when the bus goes, go where the bus goes. Well, who wants to live that way? I mean, it's not the way we end up living. We have this great car that's been created for us. We can go at a drop of a hat. We can go to wherever we want to go. Yet all these folks, we say, oh no, you have to go when we provide it for you, where it goes. I mean, Come on, this is not really creating affordable living, and really, to me, you pointed it out very clearly. The real opportunity here is to take mobility and allow that mobility to shape itself to what people really want, where they're coming from, where they're going, and provide that in an affordable way. Yes, it's going to take sharing. It should take sharing. We've got to deal with this COVID stuff with respect to the sharing. We'll get to that. We'll deal with that. But what we really need to do is put that in there, share when we can so that it becomes fundamentally affordable. And that fundamental affordability then gives the opportunities and all the things that you talk about. And that to me is the key opportunity of this technology. And guess what it is? It is transit. What is transit? Providing mobility as a service to folks. Why should you provide mobility as a service by some designer who designed stops and we shall run only and it should run every whatever? Why not provide it so that in fact it's a system that in fact can respond to what the customer wants? These folks are customers. We should treat them better.
I would just, like I said, we learned so much from you, so it's hard for me to.
No. We're all working on this. We're all working on this.
We're going to agree a lot probably on this podcast. So I would say that there's another stark choice that people have, right? So they do buy cars because that's how you get around, and that's understandable, but they're unaffordable. So 7 million Americans.
Yeah, but they do buy cars. What's there, one per family? So what? The little woman gets to stay in the kitchen, barefoot and pregnant? I mean, that's a 1950s concept. That's not a 21st century concept. That's not an equality concept. That's not an opportunity for everyone, level playing field. The children don't get to go. The seniors don't get to go. They have to be schlepped and chauffeured. Come on, that's because you can only get one. And then when you get that one, it has a broken taillight. Guess who stops you? Guess who, whatever. Guess what you can't pay? Oh my, I mean, cut it out. Quit piling this stuff on the folks. Sorry.
Well, I mean, that's the point. They're making choices. I mean, it costs low income people $50 to $500 more even just for insurance and other things. So even the cost of that personal mobility is more. And as I think, Alain said, this is about getting someone where they need to go point to point in an efficient way and a cheaper way, both for themselves, but also for society.
Absolutely.
Governments are spending so much money in somewhat an insufficient service. So we have to get there. Technology has to be invented, but we need to be thinking about this use case, which can be so important and helpful to all of us and to people.
I think that's most important to do the use case. When we think of the operational design domain of this, the operational design domain is the scope of what the mobility needs of this sector of the population, because right now they got nothing. Okay, or that what they have is really poor. To do it for those of us that have so many ways to do anything and whatever and so on and so forth. Come on, that's not where you're going to get the biggest bang out of this buck, the biggest improvement in the quality of life. Where you're going to get it is really addressing where people really can use it, need it, improve themselves and improve society and themselves, all by doing it.
Robbie, you actually put a number on this in this report. You come up with a figure that says that autonomous vehicle transportation could reduce average household costs by more than $5,000 a year. Tell us more about how this was arrived at.
Right. So if you look at the cost of different forms of mobility, I mean, take a New York taxi, which is like $2 a mile. You take shared Lyfts, Ubers, private rides, which are about $1 a mile. Personal cars, 60 cents higher, all depending on many, many factors. But overall, if you take electric vehicles, electric propulsion, which has no maintenance or fueling essentially, and you take, running large fleets, there are numbers at the most conservative by Morgan Stanley at about 50 cents a mile. And as I said before, in the most dense areas, our government's spending about $1 per ride to subsidize it. I said before, it's about 60% of a ride is subsidized. And in non-urban area, it could be up to $6 a ride. For paratransit, it could be up to $35 a ride. So here you have a 50 cents per mile option, versus, what a government might be spending, which is $1 at the cheapest per ride. So there you go. That's 2 free miles, okay? But I've seen the lowest estimates is 10 cents a mile. So you could give 10 miles to every person for free. And I think that's really exciting. And it will depend on cost, but operating fleets of these and having, different vehicle sizes, different form factors to meet different needs will allow us to optimize and provide the mobility. Like no one wants to. People just want to, and it's cleaner from an environmental perspective, assuming you're using an electric vehicle, as I said before. And you begin to see that transit systems are starting to think through this. So, in Pinellas County, Florida, they're doing 23 free rides to people between 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. because not when buses are running, and this is a more affordable option. In some cities like New York, VIA has a contract with the school boards, helping them deal with their school buses and their planning of that and others. So you begin to, Dallas has a program like this with Uber. And so once again, the current system is still expensive, but if you bring in autonomy, you bring in electric, and you bring in shared, you really bring down the price per mile that our government is already spending. So can you provide a better service? Now, once again, we need a metro system. We need government to provide some of that. This is not to knock out those systems, but is this the future or one part of that future? And so it's not just, big buses that are many times empty running around on routes that are not ideal and really can provide more access to more jobs. I'll use one more statistic. So we looked at Amazon fulfillment centers. And this is not an indictment of Amazon at all, but I mean, clearly they're having hundreds of thousands of new jobs. These are future jobs for people who want those jobs. So the 60 largest Amazon centers, I can't remember the number exactly. It was in the 80% do not have access except to get there, except through actual cars. So
a big one around here is Robbinsville. Okay, stuff from Robbinsville comes to my house, has wonderful $15 an hour jobs, blue collar jobs, sitting there next to the Jersey Turnpike. Does
less than 10 miles from Trenton, as you always say.
Yeah. New Jersey Transit Service? Of course not. Nobody lives there. Probably.
So actually, it's 100% of the largest center. 60.
Probably, absolutely, and my goodness, and why not? Wow, they'd have to transit. Well, these vehicles, they don't care. They go there. They take people there. They pick them up. If I'm a business, I have to spend money for parking spaces for people to let their vehicles sleep while they're in my store. Why shouldn't I instead be spending money on getting people to and from my store instead of them parking their vehicle? I mean, wouldn't I get more out of getting them there? I mean, I'm making them go out and buy a car to get to my place, let it sit there doing nothing while they shop for my stuff.
There's another iron.
I mean, it's just unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And employers do the same thing. How many parking garages do we have and we're going to build at Princeton University? To store things that we've made the people go out and buy and spend money on that are really not too damn efficient, environmentally and energyly and all that stuff. Instead of saying, oh my goodness, we're going to pitch in to have this the stuff that will just bring people there and let them come and go.
And you know, the irony is also for the car companies themselves, right? Why does Cruise exist? Why is General Motors, as an example, putting all that and the capital into that? It's because they see selling miles is actually a better business model for them as well. So the question is, you know, how do you link pair these two things up? And so this is really, in some ways, letting government get out of the way to develop this as soon as possible. The other advantage, of course, of autonomy that people talk about is, you know, the amount of lives saved. I mean, until this pandemic, I used to say it was a pandemic on our roads. Sadly, we do see, though, we're willing to let people die. So I don't even know if that's the sales economic perspective. This is a sales point, which is it's better for car companies that make low margins on selling a vehicle one time and then having to service those vehicles. And no car companies are beginning to see them themselves. Now, they have to deal with selling something today that makes a profit versus the future. But I think the indication when you look at these car companies and their partnerships and their sort of frenemy statuses, they need to find the capital to be part of this future or they will not exist. And this is a use case that we have to make sure we keep our eye on, and that the government itself will benefit if they allow this to happen faster.
Robbie, you bring up the pandemic, and there are lots of issues we can talk about related to it. One of them, obviously, is will people be willing to ride share in the foreseeable future to a great extent? What do you think?
Yeah, so look, I'm not going to be one to, first of all, we saw the importance of what we call now frontline workers, right? People go to our grocery stores, the nurses, or the people who make our hospitals clean, or the bus drivers themselves. I mean, these people need to be able to get the jobs, and they feel unsafe. If you read many of the stories, we've got stories in the paper about it. Look, I'm not sure how much, you know, we're sharing. There will be a lot of sharing, clearly. But, you know, there's also a scenario that says that a single occupant pod, being able to get a single person point to point, is also cheaper than loading up people into these vehicles. So yes, you don't have to have 50-person vehicles. You can have point-to-point transportation. You can put many people in. But, you know, if we did not have a federal motor vehicle safety standard, an FMVSS, that allowed us to design from the ground up in materials, in size, the form factor, everything, taking the full advantage of electrification, taking full advantage of autonomy, we could have a very different system. Look at micro-mobility, these scooters, which have been around during the pandemic, right? People have been using them. I mean, there was a moment where someone bankrupt because they couldn't do it. But right now, Rivian, which has an electric moped, has provided free rides to these frontline workers, and you see them all over around Washington, D.C. Now, are they not the future? You know, if this was autonomous and like one person sat in it and it was cheap and small and used our bike lanes, which could become micro mobility lanes. I mean, the point is in the last less than 10 years, due to sensors, batteries, big data, and everything else that we see going on, this is the next place to be disrupted. Some people, you know, maybe thought, got too excited about it, and now they don't think it's exciting enough, but I don't see anything that's changed. This is possible. Mobility is the most important factor. Energy is what causes our wars, kills people on our streets, doesn't get people to jobs, doesn't give them the lifestyle they want. And here we have autonomous shared electric, which could do these things. And I just do not understand. And what we need to work on is how do you allow companies to innovate, but then society to best utilize the technologies that they have innovated.
And vehicle sanitizing is a good business opportunity.
Yeah, I think with respect to the design of vehicles, especially with respect to an electric vehicle that doesn't need the transmission and the same drivetrain sort of things that the internal combustion needs, one can design a vehicle that has compartments on it, that in fact you can't separate folks, and in fact, you know, and have separate air supply circulation and all that if things are really, you know, such that that people don't want to get close to and somebody else anymore. I just don't know what kind of human being that becomes, but maybe that's what we evolved to. wait and see. But certainly, I think that can all be designed on top of this. Let's call it a skateboard, which is 4 wheels, electric motor, and the system that basically controls it safely to get from A to B to C to D to E to F. I think that's straightforward.
But, our regulatory, I don't know if this is important, but, our regulatory environment is kind of constricting in this area. It's one of the things that need to open up. And we actually, as part of proposals for stimulus, right now car companies can only build 5,000 cars that they consider quote unquote exemptions, which allows them to redesign and rethink. And if you gave them 100,000, they could retool their factories in preparation for this future, rethink, like putting people backwards and facing them backwards, or, taking out components that they no longer need. And I do think it's a very important part. Like if you look at what Waymo is doing, and total kudos to them, but in the end, they've taken a normal car that weighs the normal amount, and they've just put a sensor on top because that's not regulated. What the car itself is so regulated. So we need safety standards that make people feel safe, but at the same time, some new sense of let people design, let them think freely, so we can, fit these use cases.
Well, I've argued for some time. Again, I don't think anybody's bought it, but this is probably a new mode. This probably needs its own executive, whatever, regulatory structure. We have it for railroads, we have it for pipelines, we have it for airplanes, we have it for cars, we have it for trains. This is different. Things aren't going to go boom. It's all focused on not going boom. It's all focused on doing things with technology. It is quite different than a car. Okay, even though it might share the infrastructure with others, and I think it probably does, and it deserves thought that comes in that allows it to both make sure that it doesn't screw up, and make sure that it does deliver the values, but gives it the flexibility to have that creativity and that innovation in that, and without being strapped on. You've got to deal with the regulations that are associated with airplanes. It's not an airplane. We're making it deal with regulations in which there are people that are unreliable, organizing and running these things. They misbehave, they speed, they go through red lights, they drink, they text, they, who knows, hop in the back seat, whatever, These things don't do any of that. They deserve their own playing field on that. I don't know, whatever. It's just
So, Robbie, congratulations again on this report, and we encourage people to read it when it comes out next week, and to check out the event you have coming up as well. We'll continue in just a moment, but this is a good time to remind you about our sponsor, the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF, symbol MOTO. To get more information, head to motoetf.com. On that website, we should point out that it's a good idea to read the white paper they have there. It's called the Smart Transportation Revolution. You'll find it under the Insights and News tab. Lots of great information there to help you make an informed decision about investing. You may know ETFs can be a smart way to spread risk with investments and focus on a particular category. So this site, once again, is motoetf.com. Getting to some of the headlines in the latest Smart Driving Car newsletter, Alan, you highlight a report from Vice with the headline, "We don't need cops to enforce traffic laws." In essence, I think they're advocating broader use of traffic cameras instead of armed officers to enforce traffic laws.
Yeah, and of course, I don't know if any of us really like to be watched, and every time we sort of go a little bit out of bounds, we're gonna get a ticket in the mail, and so that's kind of the sort of oversight problem that's associated with technology. I guess my main point is why do the people that pull us over and give tickets carry guns. I mean, Bonnie and Clyde, you know, they're not, are they really on the roads these days? Why are we doing that? I mean, we do so many things that end up piling on to certain folks that they can't get on from under it, you know. Princeton police, you know, pull over people because there's a warrant out because they didn't pay some fine someplace in some other jurisdiction. Who knows what? Maybe they had a tail light out and they got a ticket and couldn't afford to pay for it, and all of a sudden now there's a warrant, and now our police are pulling them over and arresting them and piling it on top. How do people ever get out from under this stuff? Okay, and really, I mean, traffic enforcement is so important, and we got to, you know, be ready with guns. I mean, don't we need to rethink? I mean, isn't it?
I guess
really
it's a
like
different mindset that you're talking about.
I think to me, it's a different mindset. Why do we have people that are so trained, so well trained in being responsible and carrying all this stuff with them, then passing out a speeding ticket? I mean, really? It's a traffic ticket. It's a parking ticket. Have I don't want to be condescending, called a meter maid. I mean, have someone who, I don't know. It amazes me. This is now the big, you know, criminal thing that somebody does, that we now need this whole criminal hierarchy to be then dealing with this part of our society. We'd be a whole heck of a lot better off if we, you know, put the intelligence in the darn vehicles, let the intelligence do it. It won't speed. It won't go through red lights. It won't tailgate. It won't do all the things. Hopefully it's a good entity like Waymo or somebody out there. They'll make sure that they all have the, you know, not broken taillights. Jeez, I mean,
am I allowed to ask a question?
Sure.
Absolutely.
No, go ahead.
Jump in,
We
Robbie.
want you to jump in. I'm doing this so you jump in. I mean, you know, I don't know. I mean, I'm being.
My question is, you know, just watching the mass debate in the United States, and when you're talking like it doesn't do this, it doesn't do that, it doesn't do this. Why? Because it's like programmed, and yet like we are a country that you know has this massive fight between like I don't want to put on a face mask. Like, are we willing? Has your views on this? The willingness of Americans to get into a vehicle that is pre-programmed to not go as fast as they want or to do these things, has that changed at all? Or, hey, you always expected them to be like that, but ultimately they'll get their time back and it'll be cheaper.
Every time I get on United Airlines and fly to the West Coast, I demand to be let into the cockpit and tell that damn pilot, go faster. No. Why is it that all of a sudden if I get into my vehicle, I get to break the speed limit? Okay. Now I know why it came in 85% that did on all this stuff and so on. And in fact, it's set expecting us to go whatever, and they give you 4, 9, or 14 or something. I know, I understand all that stuff. But come on, I mean, this is just totally irresponsible, and you know, it gives us a way to, you know, get our rage out, in largely, you know, a non really aggressive way, although it boils over at times. But come on, it's just cut it out. All right, and in a sense, and sitting over us and watching us, and every time we sort of hit the edge of the cage, you zap us. I don't think. Look, just give us a ride. When I get in an elevator, you know, do I jump up and down to try to, you know, lessen the weight or something like that? So it goes. I don't know what sort of F equals MA things I have in my brain, which aren't, you know, no. I mean, relax. I don't know. I think it's a good question. Yeah, I think I didn't think I'd ever wear a seatbelt, but they ended up making seatbelts easy and so on. So I decided to. a lot of people have motorcycles who say they won't wear a helmet. Okay. Okay. Make the call. All right. I guess. But in a sense, is that only the only reason why somebody has a motorcycle to not wear a helmet? I think they're getting something else out of a motorcycle than not wearing the helmet. Okay. And so I think when I get into a cab, do I really, or into an Uber, do I tell the Uber driver to go faster?
Right.
I might have, but I doubt it. I usually say slow down because I don't trust them or something. Yeah, that's me. Sorry. I don't think that's a great imposition. It's all of our manhood is not built into I got to speed. I hope not anyway.
Robbie, there's going to be a significant portion of the population, as we've been seeing in the divide in the country, who are going to challenge all of this, obviously, and not be willing to. But I guess time will tell, and time can change.
Well, I exist in the political sphere. I live in Washington, and in our system, it's much easier to stop something than to make something happen. And my big fear is that in this great technology, leaps forward, all the incumbent interests that do have a lot to lose, because our society has been built around single owner, car ownership. How do they stop maybe some of this progression and speed? Yeah. In China, I think you can't take it out of your mind. And we're about to put out another paper that deals with the supply chain and technology race between us and China in transportation. They can snap their fingers and make rules and laws and let this innovation happen. So clearly I think it's how do we make sure that we don't let our political system get in the way? We move at the speed of technology and safety, not necessarily at the speed of our own preconceived notions of manhood.
I agree with you, Robbie. I think we do have to watch out because there are some people who might, there's nothing that's all one and all good and all bad. If it was, we'd already have it. We wouldn't be arguing about it. It'd be so darn obvious, And so maybe it's the people that sell used parts or car repair shops or whatever, and those kind. And so one has to certainly be careful of somebody throwing monkey wrenches into this thing. The automobile industry has had a very, very good run for the past 100 years and so on, and they're and delivered, we agree, a great product, provided enormous improvement in quality of life for a large percentage of the population of the world, and so deserve all the credit in the world. But I think it's time to move on. And we're not saying you have to do this. Okay, it's not going to go all the way over.
Right.
We haven't even started to move yet.
Right.
Right now we're still at zero. Okay, we're not even at 1%. We're not even. Even Uber, Lyft, and ride hailing never got to 1%. Okay, there's room for everybody here. Okay, and there's really room to certainly improve it for the quality of life to a lot of folks, as your paper really addresses, and that's really where we should be moving, I think, at this particular point in time.
Well, moving on in the newsletter, Alan, Elon Musk spoke today via video message at the opening of Shanghai's annual World Artificial Intelligence Conference, and he said Tesla is very close to achieving level 5 autonomous driving technology. And you point out the basic technology is only one little piece of the puzzle.
I think the basic technology is just a piece of the puzzle. You got to have a business case. And if he puts this out there, what's he going to do? Sell it to me? And if he sells it to me and it does all this stuff itself, he's the one that's responsible. And so therefore, he's the one that's going to have to pick up the tab if something happens to me. He doesn't have enough money.
Well, as you've said before, that kind of business model certainly is not sustainable.
I'm not startable. Not forget sustainable. It's not even startable. And he better really be there. Because if there's any gap in being there, that means things go boom. That means he has to pick up the tab.
Owners would have to sign off that they're responsible, even with level 5.
I'm responsible. This thing is driving me, and I'm sitting there sleeping or whatever and enjoying myself, and the thing goes boom. That's my response. The United Airline pilot is flying the plane. The plane goes down. Has anybody said any of the passengers are responsible? I mean, if they carried a bomb, sure, whatever, but, cut it out. So that business case isn't there, so he can't sell it to me. Is he going to own it and operate it? Well, that's not just the technology, okay? You got to find the customers. You got to put it together. You have to have your operational design domain. You have to do, there's a lot of work you got to do. He hasn't even started yet. So, yeah, I mean, I love him saying he's close. It depends on what the definition of close is. How long have we been doing virtual reality? How long ago was Toy Story? Every time they put in a movie in which there is virtual reality on there, you can see it. We're 99.9% of the way there, but guess what? That last 1/10 of 1%, non-trivial. I don't know.
Meanwhile,
level five is just, I mean, it's supposedly everywhere. Are you joking? I can't drive my Tesla. I don't have one, but if I had one, down a riverbank, okay? It won't go there, all right? If I go in the fog, I die, okay? All right? So it's not everywhere every time. If I go in deep snow, the thing, I don't know, stops. At least I hope it stops. I don't know. Whatever.
Well, his other business model seems to be succeeding.
Yeah, no, he's doing great. He's a great publicist. He gets a lot of free press. We're here talking about Teslas and so on. I mean, did he pay it? I mean, we should have gotten paid. Robbie, you and I and Fred should have gotten a check for all this. Never mind.
Well, Tesla delivered 90,650 vehicles in the midst of a pandemic. Yeah. A third of them in China, roughly. So
yeah, it's the iPhone. It's the iPhone all over again in China. I mean, this thing apparently has an aurora around it that, people just want to buy. Great. I mean, wonderful. I mean, all the kudos in the world. All the kudos in the world. I mean, really. I mean, to do what he's accomplished. I mean, I think great. Applaud him.
From VentureBeat, there's a story headlined, How May Mobility's Autonomous Shuttle Ambitions Backfired.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth reading. I mean, this is not easy. And it's, I don't know, I don't want to say, but, they weren't even close to being able to do it in the operational design domain. I mean, to do driverless, you have to take the driver out of there. To be able to make it affordable, to be able to have it be demand responsive and sit around parts of the day and not do anything and then just be available at 2:00 in the morning to take you to the doctors or take you to Newark or to do whatever the other things means that you can't have a human that you're trying to pay a living wage and a living work environment to do it. Okay. You need something. I hate to say the word, you need a slave. You need somebody you can direct to do it. And it's not a body, it's a gizmo. It's a computer. It's an inanimate object. And if we can do that, then we can make it demand responsive, and we can make it affordable, and of course the affordability comes because most of this technology is Moore's Law-ish. And man, Moore's Law is like the best thing that almost happened to humanity in some sense, Things get better and cheaper over time. Whoa, I mean, want as much of that as I can.
Also from the Smart Driving Car newsletter, a story from Digital Trends. Autonomous ride sharing isn't dead. How Waymo is adapting to the post-COVID era. The post-COVID era thing jumps out at me as being very optimistic.
Well, yeah,
Are we in our second wave?
yeah, we're in our second wave, and who knows, and whatever. I guess, the other pandemics have only, I guess, had 2 waves or 3 waves or lasted a couple of years or something like that. I guess, look, when the economy is so impacted by this, one would expect the economy to become innovative out of someplace and save it. There's just so much value that's being lost out there that, by so many people that, some entities are going to be creative and be able to deal with it. I mean,
Well, Waymo had stopped their service in Arizona for some time. Then the announcement weeks ago that they were restarting it. And now I'm seeing all these headlines from Arizona. That's probably the worst place or one of the worst places in the country to be. So you wonder what they're doing now.
Yeah, no, I mean, and the article really didn't divulge all that much, so it was really light, but whatever. Yeah, one doesn't know. Look, the good thing is I don't think this really sets back the technology. Why? Because the key part of this thing, besides the business case, is really getting the technology to work. By work means is it can actually do the things that we say it's going to do in the operational design domains and do it safely. And guess what? The folks that are really working on that can work remotely because it's all code. It's all code and it runs through simulation, and they have enough data out there really to be able to run. You really don't have to be out there. And if they're not going from whatever generation X to generation X plus one of this thing, that always takes massive, personal computing, writing code efforts and sitting there. And all that is probably going on more efficiently if people actually look at it than it was before the pandemic. So as I look at that, all that piece of it continues to progress. And so as soon as we get out of this thing, people are going to be there with, now we got the solution. We have to make the business case work, and we still have to work on that sucker. I had a call this morning with the folks in Trenton. We are continuing to move forward to make the business case there to have a start to provide this kind of mobility in a community that can really use it and have it be welcome. So all that stuff is still going on in the background during this pandemic. So
I'd add something else, which is, I think the pandemic in some ways, the way we get our goods. So, we're talking a lot about people delivery, but really goods delivery. And it really showed not only the demand side has gone up, but this idea of contactless delivery has changed people's perception. And so I think that, as Lon said, it's like you develop it for the goods delivery now, where there is, this sort of new potentially big business model where public buys into it. It's totally transferable ultimately.
We have Amazon buying Zoox. That to me is such a big thing. It's a good thing. But you have Amazon doing this to move things from Titusville over to my house. And guess what? You can do, I don't know, 50% of it, a substantial percentage of that between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m., where there are no kids out there chasing balls. There are no bicyclists. There's no pedestrians out there. And you can actually go there and basically get the technology from the 98% to the 99.9 whatever percent working, moving goods. And doing it for a bottom line that is just so powerful and so motivating. I mean, there's just money there to do this, and for everybody's value. And then all of a sudden, when you come out of this thing on the other side, it's not available to move people during the day. I mean, it's almost easy.
in a post-COVID world, people say, well, what habits will change, which will come back, and I think delivery is definitely going to change. And I don't see any reason why people would go back. They've already created their systems. They've got their reservation slots. They've done all these things. So I think it's this use case that we see, unlike people who might, they might go back to their old habits in how they get around what they do. But for this, I just don't see. I think this is the use case where we do see, change that will be permanent. And, we have to figure out how to get people as many goods as they want on their front doorsteps without all that traffic, congestion, environmental costs, and everything.
That continues the economy going. Somebody has to put this stuff together. Somebody has to make it happen. And it's easier to do technologically, and it's less risky, and it delivers money to the bottom line, and all those things. And
But you don't even have to go the fastest route, the most dangerous route. Like a good's not going to say, "Hey, why did you turn down this street, which is not the safe?" Because it's safer. It's a safer route, and no one cares.
Absolutely.
So, and then you learn, and then it gets applied to the human side. So I think it's really. I don't think COVID has stopped this at all. In some ways, it might have even accelerated it.
That's where I'm ending up. I'm looking at this thing. When you look at these things and the process of going through it this way, we get to a better solution earlier. Hey, it's not bad. Hey, that's a heck of a silver lining. It's tough to find silver linings in COVID, but this may very well be a silver lining in COVID.
Well,
I got one. I got to give you a quick silver lining.
Okay.
My daughters.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't go to camp, we came up with this idea that they would demolish and remodel a bathroom from scratch in our house. So my high school daughters are there's a silver lining. I'm going to have an amazing bathroom because my daughters couldn't otherwise go to camp. So I'm giving you my one silver lining in all this terrible death, destruction, and economic uncertainty.
That sounds like it's good for your economic certainty, actually, Robbie.
I've asked for them to stop banging for the last 45 minutes.
Terrific. And that whole Amazon Zoox thing is hopefully going to be the topic of our next live discussion or debate.
Yeah, wow.
Coming up within the next couple of weeks. We'll have a date soon, I think, for that, right?
Yeah, we're looking to do that, I guess, a week from Tuesday. I think it's really worth thinking about and really glad that, Amazon, of course, they've been working on this. It's fundamental to their business model, free delivery, and it's just cost them money. Oh my goodness, if they can come closer to actually doing it for free, all that money drops to the bottom line.
And
God knows Mr. Bezos needs it, right? So.
Of course, and we class of '86, and we are here. Anytime you want to, a professorship.
We have a new name for these discussions. It's called Driving the Debate. So people can go to drivingthedebate.com to see what's next. And they can check out also some of our previous discussions.
Yeah, it is a debate. I look, if one of the good things about the future is that we don't know what it's going to be. Otherwise it'd be boring. The fact that we don't know is a real, I think, virtue in a sense. It keeps us going, keeps us interesting, and really it's trying to discuss these things and figure out good ways to bring about better futures.
On that note, that'll do it for this edition. Thanks to our sponsor, the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF. The ticker symbol for the ETF is MOTO, and more information is available at motoetf.com. And we really want to thank Robbie Diamond for joining us. Great stuff, Robbie.
Thank you.
And people should be reading that paper when it comes out next week. And the website, again, for people to go to learn more about what you've got coming up. The virtual event next week is secureenergy.org. You can find us at smartdrivingcar.com, also on Anchor FM, Spotify, TuneIn, Apple, Google, Spreaker, SoundCloud, wherever you turn for your podcasts. You can get your smart speaker to play us too. You can find my tech reports at techstination.com. I'm Fred Fishkin along with Alain Kornhauser. Thank you for listening or watching, and please stay healthy and safe.
Stay healthy and safe. Have a great day. Robbie, wonderful having you. Fred, always fun.